Hi, my name's Sean Phillips. This is my presentation for Module 16, a case study about Internet use violations for EDL 850 school law. As we look at this case, there are several things that we know. The first thing that we know a little bit about is the community. This community consists of the high school, Roosevelt High School, and it's in a fairly well-to-do part of town, in a larger city where parents are professionals. They typically have good careers, probably supporters of education, and their students are definitely well taken care of. They have all the different tools that they might need to be successful, as well as parents that care about their education. We also know a little bit about the principal in this case. The principal here is Dr. Stephen Forbes. He's been a principal at Roosevelt for 9 years, and during that time it seems that he's done a very good job. He's been recognized for various achievements. He's proud of his school's reputation, and typically he looks to hire candidates that he feels are highly qualified and going to bring the best education possible to students. Because of all this, he has respect of teachers and community. He seems to be one of those types of principals that people would really like to work for. What do we know about the teacher in this case study? Well, the teacher is named Cindy Walker. Cindy Walker, when hired, had a very impressive educational background. She already had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, as well as some post-secondary classes after graduate classes that she's taking. So she was very impressive on paper. She teaches courses that are hard to fill, so things like zoology, botany, and genetics. So finding a candidate that teaches those is a pretty impressive thing. She has high expectations of her students. She tries to challenge them academically, trying to push them to their limits. And she's very serious about how she handles class. It sounds like she likes to maintain order and definitely not be a teacher that allows a lot of horseplay in her classroom. Because of this, she tends to struggle a little bit with the student and teacher relationship, with some students tending to maybe not like her teaching style very much, but she feels that it's important to maintain this type of demeanor and expectation in order to push students to be successful. She has not done a very good job, though, of listening to suggestions from the principal. He's given her suggestions on how to make this a little bit smoother, but is yet to take advantage of those. So what do we know about the students and parents in this case? One, that we have high-achieving students. They're enrolled in some of those higher-level courses. We know that they have strong grades in high school, and that they are stressed about her class. Some of them are feeling like there's a potential that this could be their first low grade, which causes stress for them. It's come to the point where parents have actually called and complained about Miss Walker and some of her teaching tactics, saying that those low grades could be due to poor education standards by Miss Walker and the workload just being too great. So too much work and not enough instruction going on. What do we know about the email that was sent? Well, in this particular case, we know that Miss Walker received an unidentified email, and in that email, she was asked to go to a website to find a personal message. In that personal message, there were suggestive comments and even curse words directed towards Miss Walker. They were very critical of the rigor of her class, thinking that her class was too difficult. And the biggest part of this, I believe, is the statement that says, "Who wants Miss Walker to disappear?" So the question will become, what is the intent of that? After the email, there was some fallout. So what do we know that's happened since? Well, we know that Miss Walker was scared. In fact, she put a call into the principal, Dr. Forbes, and she claims that a threat was made on her life. It's interesting that she jumped to the conclusion that this was a threat to her life, even though there really isn't a direct comment on physical violence in there, just a question of if anyone wanted her to disappear. She wants to know if she should call the police. Is this a serious enough situation that police should be called? And she sends a hard copy of this to Dr. Forbes so he can take a look at it. We know that the fallout caused some speculation, where Mrs. Walker assumes that it could possibly have been created by Randy Franks, a student in her class, and she thinks this because of different comments that he makes during class, and knows that he has a lot of computer knowledge, so thinks that he would have the ability to possibly do something like this. Another thing that we know from the reading is that the school has a district technologist. So the fact that they have an IT department, I think, plays a role in this case, and something that we can look to address through this fallout as well. So what do we know about the technology in this? Well, we need to know, or what do we need to know? We need to know, does the email have a connection to a district device? If it does, that leads us to being able to use the IT department to help us find out some things. Does the website itself give us any clues? Are there usernames or profile information, things that might have profile pictures that might allow us to figure out who might be responsible for some of these things? And then, are there any other things that the district technologist can help us with? What do we need to know about the email sender? First, we need to know, well, what do students know about it? Can they help us a little bit with some of this? So Randy, obviously he has been accused. Does he know anything about it? Would his friends know anything about it? And something else I think to consider would be other students that you know are typically your responsible students that you can trust, so to speak. Is there anything that they might know about or heard about that might lead us to know where this email and website came from? And then, are we automatically assuming that this is done by a student? Could there be someone else? We know from our case study that parents have been frustrated. Could this possibly be a parent that is venting some frustration as well? And is the person that sent the email actually the person that created? In our case study, it said that the person received an unnamed, or that Ms. Walker received an unnamed email that told her to go to a web page. So is the person that created the email the person that created the web page, or could they just try to be anonymously letting Ms. Walker know about this? And I think another thing that we need to know about the email sender is what their meaning of disappear is. Does disappear just mean I don't want them physically in my class, give me a different teacher, or does the term disappear, is that a physical threat? So for our problem overall then for this, I think our problem is who developed a website directed at attacking Ms. Walker, and what was their intent? Well, to do this, I think there's 3 different things we have to do. First, we have to identify the individual. Is it a student? Is it some community member or some other type of individual that we haven't talked about yet? Then we need to know, what is their intent? Was it a verbal attack or is it a physical threat? And then after that, we need to come up with our resolution. So we need to communicate with all individuals involved. From that communication, determine if any disciplinary action should occur. And then also talk about prevention, how we could keep this from happening in the future. So my plan of action. The first thing I think we should do is talk with the employee. So Mrs. Walker, I think, needs to be checked on in the morning. Obviously, with her being scared the night before, I think it would be a good practice for the administration to check in on her and make sure she's doing okay. Second, has she thought of any new information? Maybe there was some other type of email that came in, or maybe, as she thinks about things, are there new thoughts that she might have about this to open up some new avenues for exploration? And I think that by doing this, we show the support of staff. That's one thing I think administration needs to do, is be supportive of their staff. Their staff needs to know that administration is always looking out for their best interest. So expressing that concern, I think, is a good step for any administrator. My plan of action. Step 2, the next thing I would do is just check with IT, because if it is an identifiable email from a school-issued device, I think that would help us out. We could go directly to that student. So if it is a district device, we can automatically find out who it was without even having to interview any other students. Okay, and also have that IT check on the website. Is there any information we can gain from there? And also, it might be a good idea just to kind of get a feeling from social media. I know here at the school that I teach at, it's a smaller school, there are teachers that are criticized online from different things at times, and so that might kind of give us a clue of where it comes from. Step 3, getting information from students. I would start out with trusted students in class. We don't know for sure what student sent this, so I would start with somebody that I knew well, that would seem to be responsible, and see if there's anything that they know. Then I would bring in Randy and talk with him in a calm approach. Do not accuse him, because we don't know that he's done anything. Kind of treat him from a standpoint of, hey, I know you know things a lot about tech. Do you know anything that might be going on that might not be appropriate, stuff directed towards staff, things like that. And then maybe even talk with Randy's friends a little bit to see what they might know. If any other names pop up that weren't mentioned previously, those people should be spoken to as well. The next step then is to determine intent. Okay, were they just wanting Miss Walker to leave, or is this a physical threat? And I think our conversation with those individuals would lead to that. So how do we resolve it? Well, it depends on who we determine is guilty. I think if a student is identified through IT, we talk directly with that student. Okay, we would not even involve Randy or his friends unless they were brought up in conversation. And then we would contact a parent about the issue and about the appropriate discipline. The discipline that would be administered would probably be according to school policy. Schools typically have a category for different types of offenses, and I think the discipline should fall within the appropriate category. If it was a parent or community member that created this website, I would contact and talk with them and try to ask them about their concerns. Ask them to shut down that page because I don't think it's anything good for the staff or for them personally. If you think about the type of community that they're in, I don't think having that look about them would be something that would be favorable. And then I would try to set up a meeting with a parent and teacher, obviously supervised with an administrator there, in order to try and resolve any conflict. If a student did make the website, then I would allow those students first to express their frustrations with me or with the principal, and I would share those then with Miss Walker, so she might be aware of some things that are frustrating their students. I would let the student know that threats are not tolerated. We will not tolerate any type of threat towards staff or students, and so some discipline would have to occur, again informing students following within those discipline policies. Okay, so what was I thinking here during this? Well, I always have the question anytime kids are complaining about things in class, are students upset but also not doing their part? So is there really something involved with Miss Walker here, or are the students just not doing their part? Second thing I'm thinking is Miss Walker needs to do a better job of building relationships in her classroom with students. And I'm also curious why she hasn't taken into the constructive criticism given by the principal. I'm also thinking I need to make sure I show support for staff, because if an administrator undercuts their staff, I think that leaves them with no authority, and it can cause further issues down the line. And I'm also going to value the perception of the district. You know, we want to make sure that we do everything well. We don't want to have any type of conspiracy type of thing, so we'll try to always maintain that look as well. So what are some unresolved things? Well, I think there's unresolved our students' idea of appropriate use. Okay, I think we could have something like a media class present like through a school news or something like that, a little segment about appropriate use. Maybe have a guest speaker come in that could talk about how appropriate use affects students. Maybe some type of reminder in a school newsletter that goes out to parents and letting them know about appropriate usage. Another thing that's unresolved is the student-teacher disconnect with Miss Walker. We are trying to deal with it here, but it's not going to be solved just through the figuring out of the email, so we need to develop that further. So I would set up more frequent meetings between the principal and Miss Walker so we can talk about progress. I would have a mentor teacher to kind of help get involved a little bit more, and then also demonstrate a need for Miss Walker to attend professional development so that she can continue to improve as a teacher. Integrity and ethical behavior. How is that shown through this? Well, I think by not blaming Miss Walker immediately for not taking advice shows ethics towards your staff. Not assuming guilt of Randy based on assumption that he might be guilty. So treating him with respect as he come in shows ethical behavior and integrity. Maintaining composure while talking with those involved shows true integrity and ethical behavior. And allowing others to voice their concerns. It's never good for someone to feel like they're not heard, so they should be allowed to express their concerns as well. And involving parents in the discipline process, that's an ethical and demonstrates integrity, not putting a child out there on their own. How to treat others equitably with dignity and respect? Well, by disciplining according to school policy, you are not treating students any differently than any others. By checking in with Miss Walker to make sure she is okay, I think that's showing people respect. Not attacking students as guilty when they come into the office shows respect towards students, and implementing a way to help teachers improve through staff development also helps. Getting information from multiple sources so that it's not just he said, she said thing also shows respect for others. My personal and professional code of ethics. First, I think everybody needs to know they have a voice. It is never good for someone to feel like they're not heard. What people perceive is a reality to that person, so you still need to deal with it even if you may not completely agree with it. Never undermine your staff. I think that's a good code to have. And always provide opportunities for self-improvement for staff as well. And then recognize that improvement and achievement. Okay, well, I hope that case study helps a little bit, and I hope you learned something as well.